Do you feel like your work or your stash captures emotion or captures memories and it changes the way that you feel or think about something? Hello everybody, welcome back to the Ietsie Klein Podcast. I'm your host, Gertrude. So this is episode 14, I believe. When I was numbering the episodes last week, I thought it was 14 last week, but it's actually this week. Back at weekly schedule, hey? So today is Monday because we've had the consecutive public holidays and I've been spending a lot of time resting, recovering still. So my shoulder and neck that I complained about last week, the muscle pain has now been resolved, but I'm still struggling quite a fair bit with nerve pain. That's quite something to work through. I've never had nerve pain in my life before, and it's something. So it gets triggered when I move my head in a particular way. So if I pull a funny face, I do apologize. It's just a vibe. It'll pass. Luckily, it's not painful all the time. And I am working with a physio to get it resolved. So hopefully that will get resolved soon. I have exercises that I need to do every day. So hubby has been keeping me honest there. Speaking of hubby, I have finished his jersey. So it's still a little bit wet, not a lot, just like, that feeling that you can't tell if it's wet or if it's cold, that one. So C's and C's and C's and C's of stockinette. It's not very fascinating to look at, but it is a huge achievement for me. It fits him wonderfully. There's a little bit of folds that's happening under the arm, but as I'm filming now and watching myself and seeing how this shirt behaves, I think it's fairly normal. It's not a inordinate amount of folds. There is the decreases on the underarm in the beginning was quite quick. Because he wanted it to be quite fitted and it was quite wide in comparison to how the body was. So I decreased every 3 rows for 10 times in the beginning and then ramped that up to every 6 rows for 5 times, plain knitting, and then every 10 rows for another 5 times. Fudged the decreases because I was making the pattern up as I was going along. So I'm just going to put this aside because otherwise it's going to make me cold. What else have I been doing? I've been working on my Vertices Unite. So I finished part 1. It's now complete. And scrunched up in the bottom here is part 2 that I've started. So I'm just a few rows in. I'm quite enjoying the contrast. It's quite a stark contrast, but I think with the rest of the more bolder colors, when they start coming in, it'll even out and look nice. At the moment, I'm like, but I want my mermaidy colors, and it's still mermaidy, but like more in a corally way than in a mermaidy way. I'm really enjoying the process though. It is super fun. And then since I finished husband's pullover, I decided I would like to start a new project. So something that I have been wanting to do for a while since the pattern dropped last year in December, is the moths sweater. Moths. There's a specific name for it. I'll put it in text. I'm the best at remembering things when I'm sick. So I am making it in, there we go, this is the one, in Dreamspell. This is a very interesting base. So I hope that the light can capture it a little bit as I turn it. So you'll see it's got slight fluffy in it, and it has like a light inside of it. It's very luminous. And the reason for that is because it's 50% superwash merino and 50% tensile. So the tensile is what gives the fluffy, as well as the shiny. As far as I know, tensile is a tree-based fiber. So yeah, it's fascinating. I love the feel of it. It's very interesting. So the moth sweater is designed to be making use of a almost fingering weight yarn held together with a mohair. So their yarn that they used was 350 meters per 100 grams. This one is 333 meters per 100 grams, if I'm remembering correctly. Yeah, 333. So I am also holding it with a mohair, and I've made my little swatchy already this morning. This is what it looks like. So the swatch has a lot more fluffy because I've added the mohair. It does maintain a lot of the luster still. It doesn't like take away that luster. It's almost like it adds to it because the mohair has a bit of silk in it as well. It's the kid silk type. So yeah, very cool. It does dull the colors a little bit. So if you have a look at the rolled up ball, let me just grip it here, next to the swatch, you can see that the rolled up ball has quite a lot of like pops of color, and the swatch, because I'm holding it together with like a light purple, this purple, it makes the purple that's in the base of this pop more, and then swallows the rest of the colors ever so slightly. I don't hate it though, because the colors as it is here, you can see it a little bit better in the skein. It reminds me of sort of watercolor flowers. So with it being a little bit more soft, it leans more into that watercolor feel. And like I said, I really like this fabric a lot. So I think I'm going to continue with this. My gauge is ever so slightly off. I'm getting 19 stitches over 10 centimeters, and I'm supposed to get 20. But I think I'm going to knit it as is because I did a bit of the math and the pattern is a bit sus to me. So the stitches as it is on the widest part of the body, it's coming up to an amount. And if I work out what the bust is listed for the pattern, it doesn't quite add up. There's about 20 or so stitches that's missing. So with a gauge that's a little bit more stitches, or a little bit less stitches, it's fitting in the gauge. When I have the same amount of stitches as what the pattern calls for, it'll be slightly bigger than what the pattern expects the size to be. So hopefully that will sort out any fit issues. The reason why it's sassy for me is because of how my body is built. Obviously, your pieces are not sitting at the top of your chest. You know, your widest part of your chest tend to line up sort of with the underside of your arm. So if this is where your arm pit is going to sit, then I expect the bust measurement and the body measurement to be fairly similar, if not the same. So having 20 stitches missing on a gauge of 20 stitches over 10 centimeters mean that you're missing about 10 centimeters of your expected width in that area. So yeah, I do expect my colorwork section to end a little bit higher than what hers does in her design of how she designed it. It does look quite big on her body, the modeled photos. So I don't know whether it is the ranunculus effect that is touching this pattern a little bit, as I've started to call it, where because of the difference of the model and the actual worn size is so huge in comparison to what the recommended ease was, it feels weird. So yeah, I do like the design. I do like the moths and the colorwork part of it. And I do know that I have quite a lot of confidence to be able to get a sweater that I will enjoy out of it. So yeah, we forge forward. I'm going to be pairing this with a Spindles and Spokes Merino DK together with a kid silk as well. So it's this charcoaly color and then this kit silk will be matched with it. It's quite a close match, I think. There is a slightly darker one that I have that is a bit of a better match, but I have the inkling I might want to do a little bit of color work either on the bottom of the body or on the sleeves, just because the amount of yarn that you need for the color work section is all of like 150 meters. So with this being 261 meters over 100 grams, I'll have some left, so why not use it? So yeah, we'll see how it goes with my gauge difference as well. I don't know how my main yarn is going to work out. I hope I'll have enough. So I should be having 4.8 skeins as per her meterage, and I have 5. So there's a bit of room there, but we'll see. Very exciting adventure. But yeah, so that's the end of my projects that I'm busy with. Today's topic is, how do you attach emotion to your projects, your finished objects? And this also stretches into emotion that's attached to your materials. So I've touched on this a little bit before when I was talking about all of my different whips and what I have and how do I feel about them and how I manage my whips, in that a lot of my whips get work on when I feel like it, and it's a very emotional decision. But a lot of that also counts for my stash. So every time that I buy yarn, it's usually when I'm with other people or at an event or something like that. So there's always like memories that's locked in together with that purchase. You can't separate the two. And as much as those memories are usually quite positive and nice to reflect back on, such as the wool festival stuff that I've bought and the stuff that I've bought at like Yarn Crawl that we've hosted for FCC and things like that, it's not always positive. Sometimes there's something that happens close to it that creeps in some small amount of negativity, or there's an emotional thing that happened at the event or something like that, that then, I don't want to say taints it, but touches that source fiber. And what I've noticed in how I work with it then is that I'm very reluctant to pick that skein to work with. And I have to like build up this almost resilience to start using it. And yeah, it can then sometimes be tough. And I don't know whether you maybe experience the same thing in your own stash, where a certain piece of material or a skein or a tool or something like that makes you think of more than just that object, because it's when it was bought, where it was bought, who were you with, what happened around it. Did you have like an accident that happened shortly after? Or like with my illness, I was very careful to not buy yarn. I bought all of 4 skeins of yarn, and they are gorgeous, and I didn't want to miss out on them. But I didn't buy anything else because I was so careful to not let my illness be attached to that new purchase, and let it like be the vibe that I think about every time I work with it, because it's unfair to the object. And I know that this is something that I do. And in the beginning, it was very subconscious. Like I didn't actively like, oh, this is the skein with these memories, and this is the skein with these emotions. I didn't actively do that. But as I'm going through my life and I've like noticed, okay, so these skeins I'm very excited to work with, and these skeins I'm a little bit, I'm not just sure when I want to start working with them. When I have those feelings and I go and evaluate where it's coming from, it's usually close to some uncomfortableness that happened, whether that's physical illness or emotional or whatever. It's life, right? Life happens. You can't control life. But the same happens when it comes to finished objects, because a finished object you're working on for a much longer period of time. So the amount of emotion and memories and vibes that's getting caught in your work is a lot more, and it's a lot stronger. And I feel like often you finish something and you love it, it's beautiful, it fits nicely. But when it comes to actually wearing something, it's the last thing you pick. And I think that if you were to evaluate why, if it's not something related to fit or feel or actual like physical properties of the item, you might find that it's something like that that's locked into it. So it's part of why I'm very careful about what test knits and test crochets I sign up for, because what happens quite often with me is that I start something, I'm very excited about it, but maintaining that excitement is hard. And if you're testing for someone, you have a time limit. You can't like doodle on something else and come back to this when you feel ready. You have to finish it before the time's up. And if you then have to like force yourself to work on it, that resentment from having to force yourself, it carries into that garment. And then I don't want to wear the finished object. So a lot of my test knits, I end up not wanting to wear, even though I love the object. So that has caused me to like become careful about what I sign up for, because it has to be something that I think I will be able to maintain the excitement for, number one, or number two, something that I know I can finish in like a weekend or a half a week type of focus work, so that if I was to force myself to finish it, that can actually finish it. So yeah, I'm not always keen to like sign up for big sweaters and things like that these days. More like cowls and shawls and those types of stuff, just because it's a little bit more accessible for the emotional baggage that I have the potential of picking up. But yeah, other than that, there's also other stuff that people have noticed and is well documented throughout time, such as the sweater curse. So for me, the sweater curse, it's not something that's like esoteric or undefined or something like that. I fully understand why it's happening. A sweater takes you between 40 and 80 hours to make, depending on what is your weight of the fiber that you're working on, what is your speed of working, and those kind of things. 40 to 80 hours is a good ballpark to put against any type of sweater, right? Now, if you think about it, you're making this for someone else. If you're spending 40 to 80 hours working on something for someone else, you're going to be thinking about them for 40 to 80 hours. You're going to be thinking about every little thing, everything in your relationship, everything that they do for you, everything that they don't do for you, everything that you feel about what happens, what doesn't happen. The small things, like while you're working on this in their presence, for example, do they take the effort of making you a cup of coffee to support you while you're doing work for them effectively? What is their feelings about it? Do they feel apathy while you're working on it, or are they super excited about it? Which leads into my finished object for this one. So this was the first sweater that I did make for my husband, and it took me about 3 months of like on and off working on it. And in the beginning, I like was pushing it, and I enjoyed it because it made me like pay attention to how fast I'm knitting and then adjust, right? And I enjoyed it from that perspective, for the technicality of it. But it is just Caesar stock in it. It took a lot to keep focus on it, to keep doing it. And I think if it wasn't for the fact that with my nerve pain, I really struggled to do anything except knitting, because any like big movements, this is also why I'm anchoring my elbow while I'm talking, any big movements affecting my shoulder or my arm is liable to trigger the icky feeling. So then I knit. And if it wasn't for that, I'm not sure when I would have been able to finish this thing so soon. Like, it might have been finished somewhere middle of the winter, I don't know. I just had half a sleeve left, but to work up the motivation for that half a sleeve, so hard. But while I was doing this, poor Grant's face was like on fire. He was so excited. He had these little glints in his eyes, and like every time I put it down, he's like, how many rows left? And when it started coming to the end, I would like tell him, hey, guess how many rows are left? It became this like little game. And when it was the very last row, I asked him, hey, guess how many rows are left? And he's like, 10. I'm like, no, a bit lower. 8. No, lower. And then when I said 1, he was like, yay! It's amazing. He was so excited. And I worked that one row, and I didn't check in with him again after I worked it, and he was playing games. So I started with a bind off, which I decided for this way to do it to a sewn bind off because it does look so clean and neat. And he deserves the best, obviously. But yeah, so I was busy working that. I was like halfway through it about. And he came over and he was like, hey, you're working on this last row for quite a while. Is everything okay? And it was just so sweet the way that he like connected with my work. And I think that if that didn't happen, if you had a partner who was like, oh, last row, yay, I'm so excited. If that was the type of response you were getting, I can fully understand how a sweater could destroy a relationship. I can. Because our work is not just keeping busy. It's not just women's work. It's not anything that can be dismissed. It is highly personal and highly emotional, because as you're working, every moment, every stitch, everything that's happening around you is getting captured. And I find that simultaneously beautiful and a little bit scary. And I can then fully understand why certain things get caught in these garments, and why you can wear something or not wear something, or if it's a blanket, choose to use it or not choose to use it. So yeah, it's interesting to think about. And shout out to AJ for bringing this topic to my table and my thought processes. I really enjoyed thinking about it and thinking about how I'm going to express this. And yeah, very interesting. So tell me in the comments, do you feel like your work or your stash captures emotion or captures memories and it changes the way that you feel or think about something? Or do you feel that it doesn't really? Because I'm very interested in this topic, because as you can probably tell, this affects me greatly. And yeah, it's really cool to think about. But that's it for this episode. Thank you so much for coming to spend some time with me. I really appreciate and enjoy having you here. And yeah, have a fantastic day further. And I'll look forward to catching you next week. Bye.